The Eclipse glided through space, its old hull showing signs of wear from countless battles. Despite its age, the ship's internal systems hummed with a quiet efficiency, each creak of the metal reminding its crew that this was a vessel forged in the fires of an older era. It wasn't the sleek, advanced warship of the Jothari. It wasn't even in the same league as their pristine, cutting-edge ships. But to Captain Lydia Graves and her crew, it was home, a symbol of humanity's survival and strength. Their mission was simple: diplomacy. Humanity had earned their place in the galaxy, but not everyone appreciated their efforts. The Jothari, a race of hyper-intelligent, technologically advanced beings, had made it clear that they didn't see humans as equals. They considered them primitive, unrefined. To the Jothari, the Eclipse was a joke, and they were eager to let everyone know. As the Eclipse approached the Jothari homeworld, the crew gathered in the briefing room, tension thick in the air. Captain Graves stood at the front, facing her officers. Her eyes scanned each one of them. They were nervous but ready. They all knew that the diplomatic mission had more at stake than just words. Humanity's place in the galaxy depended on proving their worth, something they weren't going to let the Jothari decide for them. "They'll mock us, and they'll belittle our ship," Graves began, her voice steady but firm. "They'll tell us we're outdated, that we don't belong. But we will show them that humanity is not to be underestimated." She paused, letting her words sink in. "Our mission is clear. We will not back down. We will speak with honor, but we will not let them forget who we are." A few murmurs rippled through the crew, a mixture of nervousness and excitement. They all knew what lay ahead, but if there was one thing humanity had mastered, it was resilience. The Eclipse's approach to the Jothari system was met with silence, a stark contrast to the usual noise of bustling spaceports and trade lanes. The Jothari had no need to prepare for arrivals. They didn't fear the Eclipse. They barely even acknowledged it. As the ship made its way toward the station, the crew received their first transmission from the Jothari. A cold, disinterested voice echoed across the comms. "Human vessel, you are clear to dock. Please proceed to the designated bay. Your warship is expected." Graves exchanged a glance with her second-in-command, Lieutenant Rhea. There was a subtle tension between them, a shared understanding that the Jothari's words carried more weight than they seemed to on the surface. "Understood," Graves replied, her voice calm but laced with an underlying fire. "We'll proceed as planned. But let's make sure they remember who's aboard." As the Eclipse docked at the massive Jothari station, the doors hissed open, revealing a towering figure in smooth silver armor, one of the Jothari leaders. His gaze swept over the Eclipse, his lip curling in a barely concealed sneer. "Such an Arctic vessel. It's almost quaint," the Jothari leader said, his voice dripping with condescension. Graves didn't flinch. "Looks can be deceiving," she replied, her tone unwavering. "You may find that appearances aren't everything." The Jothari leader's eyes narrowed slightly, as though sizing up the humans for the first time. But the mockery lingered in the air, thick and palpable. They were in enemy territory, outnumbered and outclassed, but humanity had never won battles by being the biggest or the strongest. They won by being clever, by turning the odds in their favor. And the Eclipse, despite its age, still had a few tricks left up its sleeve. The cold metal floors of the Jothari station gleamed under the bright lights, and Captain Lydia Graves stood tall, unfazed by the condescending atmosphere around her. The Jothari leader, a tall, silver-skinned alien with piercing blue eyes, had led them into a spacious, sterile meeting room. The walls were adorned with holographic displays showcasing galaxies and advanced technology that put humanity's own capabilities to shame. But despite the impressive display, Graves knew that the Eclipse wasn't here to compete with technology. They were here to prove something far more important. As the captain took her seat, her crew flanked her, each of them silent but resolute. The Jothari leader, who had introduced himself as Zarath, sat across from them, his expression unreadable. "We are honored by your presence," "Captain Graves," Zarath said, his tone dripping with false politeness. "I trust you understand the importance of this meeting. The future of humanity's place in the galaxy rests on your ability to negotiate wisely." Graves met his gaze, her voice steady. "We are well aware, Commander Zarath, and we're prepared to make our case." A few moments of silence passed as the Jotheri leader studied the humans. His eyes flickered to the eclipse on the holographic display, which, despite the vast size of the Jotheri station, looked small and old in comparison. "It is curious, Captain. You send an outdated warship to negotiate with us," Zarath said, a hint of mockery creeping into his voice. "You cannot possibly expect to compete with the military might we command." Graves kept her expression neutral. "I expect no competition, Commander. I expect respect." Zarath raised an eyebrow, clearly amused. "Respect," he repeated. "Tell me, Captain, what is there to respect about a species that still relies on such primitive ships?" The room grew tense. Graves could feel the weight of her crew's eyes on her, but she held her ground. "Respect comes not from what you have, but from what you can do with it," she replied. "The eclipse is old, yes, but it has survived more battles than you can imagine, and it will continue to survive because of the people who serve on it." Zarath seemed ready to dismiss her words as mere bravado when a sudden, shrill alarm cut through the room. The holographic displays blinked to life as red lights flashed around them. Zarath's face turned from smug amusement to cold focus in an instant. "Report," he snapped. One of his officers quickly stepped forward, looking at the data stream on the holographic display. "An unidentified fleet has just entered our system. Their ships are warships, but they appear unrefined." The officer's voice trembled slightly, a sign that even the Jotheri weren't entirely certain what they were dealing with. Grade's heart sank, but she didn't flinch. She had been through enough military encounters to recognize the warning signs of an ambush. Her mind raced as the Jotheri scrambled to react, their confidence rapidly turning into concern. "Rake," Zarath muttered darkly. "Pirates. A pirate fleet." Graves leaned forward, her voice sharp. "We should form a defensive perimeter immediately. We've fought the Rake before, and we know their tactics." Zarath's eyes flashed with irritation. "This is none of your concern, human. Stay out of the way while we handle it." The words stung, but Graves held her composure. "I'd prefer to keep my ship in one piece, Commander. If you're not going to defend the station, I'll do it myself." The Jotheri leader scowled, clearly torn between his pride and the reality of the situation. As the pirate fleet appeared on their scanners, he realized the Eclipse wasn't just an old ship, it was a weapon in the right hands. The pirate ships, large and heavily armed, began their assault. They didn't hesitate, immediately targeting the Jotheri fleet. Zarath made a quick decision, ordering his ships to return fire, but their responses were sluggish. The Jotheri were caught off guard, their advanced technology unable to counter the unpredictable nature of the pirate fleet. Captain Graves stood, giving a sharp nod to her crew. "Prepare the Eclipse for battle," she ordered. "We can't fight them with our outdated weaponry," Lieutenant Rhea said, her voice tinged with doubt. Graves looked her in the eye. "I didn't say we would fight them with weapons. We'll fight them with tactics." With no more words needed, the crew scrambled to action. Graves knew they didn't have the firepower to stand toe-to-toe with the Jotheri fleet, but that wasn't their strength. Their strength lay in their ability to think, to adapt, and to never give up. The Eclipse powered up, ready to face an enemy who had no idea what was coming. The Eclipse's systems hummed to life as its crew sprang into action. Captain Graves stood at the center of the command deck, her eyes sharp and focused as she watched the chaos unfolding outside. The Jotheri fleet was in disarray, its ships struggling to mount any real defense against the brutal onslaught of the Rake pirates. Pirate ships, crude and heavily armed, zoomed past the Jotheri's sleek vessels, firing relentless barrages of energy blasts. The Jotheri's advanced technology, while capable in many respects, was caught off guard by the unpredictable tactics of the pirates. The pirate ships weren't concerned with precision. They cared only for destruction and chaos, and it was working. The Jotheri seemed to be at the mercy of the onslaught. Graves had expected this. The Jotheri were too proud to understand that not all battles could be won with superior technology alone. Humanity had fought through far worse with much less. "Captain," Lieutenant Rhea called, her voice cutting through the noise of the command center. "The Jotheri fleet is requesting our assistance. They say they'll leave us behind if we don't." "Absolutely not," Graves interjected firmly. "If they want our help, they'll have to ask for it properly. We're not here to be their pawns." A low rumble filled the deck as the Eclipse shifted into position, its aging thrusters roaring to life. The ship's sensors flickered on the displays, pinpointing the pirate fleet's movements with surprising precision. "Captain, we've got multiple pirate vessels closing in on us," Lieutenant Rhea reported, her fingers flying over the controls. "They're targeting us directly. We'll need to move fast if we don't want to take any hits." Graves narrowed her eyes, calculating. The Eclipse didn't have the advanced firepower of the Jotheri, but it had something far more valuable: experience. She trusted her crew and their ability to adapt on the fly. "Brace for evasive maneuvers," Graves ordered. "We won't let them get close enough to fire." The Eclipse shuddered as it veered sharply to the left, narrowly avoiding a volley of plasma blasts from one of the Reek ships. The pirates were aggressive, but they were predictable. Their ships lacked the discipline of a trained military force, and that would be their undoing. Graves knew exactly what to do. "Get us behind their formation," Graves commanded. "I want to hit them from their blind spot." "Understood," Lieutenant Rhea replied, eyes glued to the screen. Initiating course correction now. The Eclipse darted through the chaos, narrowly dodging blasts as it weaved between Jotheri ships and pirate vessels. The pirates were too focused on the larger, more obvious targets to notice the Eclipse slipping into their midst. As the ship closed the gap, Graves gave the order: "Fire on the lead pirate ship." The Eclipse's old cannons groaned, but they still packed a punch. A burst of energy shot out, striking the pirate ship's engines. The vessel spun out of control, and before the pirates could react, another blast disabled its weapon systems. The pirate ship exploded in a fiery flash, its remains scattering in all directions. "That's one down," Lieutenant Rhea muttered, her voice tight with focus. The Eclipse didn't slow. Instead, it pressed on, darting from one pirate ship to the next, exploiting every weakness. The Rake pirates, frustrated by the unexpected resistance, began to turn on each other in a frenzied attempt to get the upper hand. "Keep it up, everyone," Graves said, her voice calm but commanding. "We don't stop until every last one of them is out of action." The crew worked as one unit, efficiently taking down pirate ship after pirate ship with pinpoint accuracy. The Eclipse was old, but its AI systems and battle-hardened crew made it a deadly weapon in the right hands. Every shot counted. Every move was calculated. And most importantly, they were faster than the pirates anticipated. On the Jotheri ships, the surprise was palpable. Their sleek, advanced vessels had been designed for speed and precision, but they were not built to handle such an unpredictable, relentless enemy. The Jotheri were good in a traditional fight, but they were used to fighting in controlled, calculated ways. The pirates, with their chaotic tactics, weren't playing by the same rules. One by one, the pirates began to fall back, their ships retreating into the darkness of space. The Eclipse didn't chase them down, but the message was clear: humanity wasn't a force to be taken lightly. As the final pirate ship retreated, Graves exhaled slowly. The battle wasn't over yet, but the tide had turned. The Eclipse had proven its worth, and the Jotheri had been forced to witness it firsthand. "Captain, the pirates are retreating," Lieutenant Rhea reported, a hint of relief in her voice. "We've won." Graves looked out at the battlefield, where the remnants of the pirate fleet scattered across space. She didn't smile, but there was a glint of satisfaction in her eyes. The Jotheri had underestimated them. They had mocked them. And now, they had seen exactly what humanity could do. "Keep the Eclipse ready," Graves said, her tone still steady. "We're not done yet." The pirate fleet was in full retreat, their ships scattering like roaches in the light. The Eclipse had done its job well, and the battlefield now lay quiet, except for the occasional drift of debris. But the job wasn't over. Graves knew that the Jotheri would never forgive themselves for letting a human ship lead the charge in a battle they should have won easily. The Jotheri, despite their technological prowess, had underestimated the unpredictability of the rake pirates and the ingenuity of humanity. As the Eclipse hovered in place, its systems running full diagnostics after the battle, Graves turned to her crew. "Stay alert. We're not out of danger yet," she said, her voice calm but commanding. Lieutenant Rhea, her face still pale from the adrenaline of the fight, nodded sharply. "Pirate ships are retreating, but they're regrouping. We should be prepared for another attack." "Agreed," Graves said, her gaze fixed on the scanner. The Jotheri ships were still scattered and disoriented, their formations a mess of damaged vessels. Even as the Eclipse had crippled the pirate fleet, it was clear that the pirates weren't giving up so easily. The rake were known for their tenacity, and they'd likely be back for revenge. As Graves gave her crew the order to stand ready, a new transmission came through. This time, it was from one of the Jotheri captains, his voice tight with frustration. "Human vessel," he began, barely containing his irritation. "We need to take the offensive now. If we allow the pirates to regroup, they'll bring reinforcements. Your assistance will be required once again." Graves held back a sigh. She had no love for the Jotheri, but in this case, they had no choice. The pirates were a threat to everyone in the sector, and the Eclipse wasn't about to let them go free to wreak havoc elsewhere. "Understood," she replied, keeping her voice neutral. "We'll provide support. But remember, we're not doing this for you. We're doing this for humanity." The Jotheri commander on the other end of the line didn't respond to the jab, but Graves could sense the tension on his side of the comm. The Jotheri had already learned not to dismiss humanity's capabilities, but it was clear they were still grappling with the reality that the Eclipse was a force in its own right. As the Eclipse moved into position alongside the remaining Jotheri ships, Graves observed the pirate fleet regrouping. They were smarter this time, more cautious, but the pirates weren't known for patience. They'd be looking for a weakness. "Get us close to the Jotheri flagship," Graves ordered. "If we're going to stop this, we need to put them on the defensive." The Eclipse sped forward, its thrusters burning brightly in the vastness of space. The Jotheri ships followed, forming a loose defensive perimeter around the Eclipse. They weren't coordinated enough to be a serious threat, but their firepower still outweighed the human ships' defenses. As the pirate ships began their next assault, the first wave targeted the Jotheri flagship. The attack was fierce, but sloppy, pirate ships crashing against the Jotheri shields with reckless abandon. Graves could see the Jotheri ships struggling to respond, their defensive lines breaking apart under the pirate assault. "We need to stop this now," Graves muttered, narrowing her eyes as she assessed the situation. She could see the Jotheri were caught between two forces, outnumbered, and now at the mercy of their own hesitation. "Lieutenant Rhea," Graves barked, "take us into the pirate formation. We need to break their lines." Rhea didn't hesitate. The Eclipse spun, its engines roaring to life as it dove headfirst into the middle of the pirate ships. The Eclipse wasn't a big ship, but it was quick, and its smaller size made it difficult to hit. As the crew braced for impact, the ship weaved and dodged incoming fire, slipping between pirate ships like a ghost. The first pirate ship came into their sights. Graves gave the command, and the Eclipse's weapons fired, striking the pirate ship's engines with pinpoint accuracy. The vessel erupted in a burst of fire, sending debris scattering in all directions. One down, Lieutenant Rhea reported, her fingers moving rapidly over the controls. The Eclipse didn't stop. It cut through the pirate fleet like a hot knife through butter, picking off ship after ship, each shot more precise than the last. The pirates were disorganized, too wild in their tactics to mount an effective defense. The Eclipse exploited every opening, its crew working in perfect synchronization. The Jothari, on the other hand, were beginning to recover. Their fire grew more focused, their ships slowly forming tighter defensive patterns as they learned from the human strategies. As Graves watched the pirate fleet dwindle under their combined assault, she knew they were on the verge of victory. But then, just as the last pirate ship began to retreat, a new signal blinked on their radar. "Reinforcements," Rhea said, her voice low and tense. The battle wasn't over yet. The pirates had more ships on the way, and the Eclipse wasn't about to let them escape. "Prepare for the next wave," Graves ordered, her voice cool and collected. "We finish this. Now." The pirate reinforcements appeared on the radar with startling speed. 3 heavily armed ships, larger and more formidable than the ones they had faced earlier. Their hulls were scared with battle damage, and the cold, menacing glow of their weapon systems flickered ominously. It was clear that the pirates were going all in now. Captain Graves stood tall, her gaze locked on the approaching ships. There was no hesitation in her eyes. She had already made the decision. The Eclipse had proven itself capable of handling smaller, more disorganized forces. But these new pirate ships were different. They weren't going to be taken down as easily. "Lieutenant Rhea, adjust course," Graves ordered. "We need to get in close before they can fire." Rhea nodded without a word, her fingers flying over the controls as she steered the Eclipse towards the incoming pirate fleet. The ship's engines roared as it maneuvered with impressive agility, dodging incoming fire from the pirates' larger cannons. The Eclipse wasn't built for a head-on confrontation, but its small size made it difficult to target with any accuracy. "We're too close," Rhea muttered, her voice tense. "If we stay this close, we risk taking a direct hit. We need to back off." "No," Graves said, her voice sharp. "We can't let them escape. We've taken out their first wave. Now we finish this." As the Eclipse darted around the pirate ships, Graves saw the pirate fleet begin to move in a coordinated attack. They were attempting to box the Eclipse in, forcing it into a vulnerable position. Graves' eyes narrowed. She could see their plan clearly: slow down the Eclipse, keep it from maneuvering, and hammer it with everything they had. But the pirates had underestimated one thing: Captain Graves and her crew. "Bring us in tight," Graves said, her voice steely. "We're not going to run. We're going to outsmart them." Rhea gave a small nod, understanding exactly what Graves meant. The Eclipse dropped lower, diving into the chaos between the pirates. With precise calculations, they aimed straight for the weak points of the larger pirate ships, their engines. They couldn't waste time on anything else. As the Eclipse closed in on the nearest pirate ship, Graves felt a rush of adrenaline. This was their moment. A flash of green energy passed by, missing them by inches, and the ship swerved to the side. They were nearly within range. "Now," Graves barked. Lieutenant Rhea fired the Eclipse's main cannons, the ship's old weapon systems groaning as the shots shot out with deadly precision. The first blast hit the pirate ship's aft section, the explosion sending out a ripple of energy across the battlefield. The Eclipse didn't stop, diving into the next target before the first explosion had even settled. Another shot, another pirate ship disabled. "You've got them on the ropes, Captain," Rhea said, her voice tightening with excitement. Graves didn't respond. Her eyes were fixed on the last remaining pirate ship. It was larger than the others, and clearly more heavily armored. It began to accelerate, trying to flee from the Eclipse's relentless assault. "No one gets away," Graves muttered under her breath. "Rhea, full power to engines. I want us to overtake that ship." The Eclipse shot forward, its engines roaring as it closed the gap. The pirate ship began firing wildly in a desperate attempt to slow them down. The Eclipse weaved between the blasts, narrowly avoiding a direct hit. The chaos around them seemed to melt away as they honed in on their prey. One last shot. One final strike. The Eclipse's cannon fired again. The blast hit the pirate ship's engine core, and it detonated in a burst of light. The shockwave sent debris flying in all directions, and the pirate ship was no more. "Target neutralized," Rhea said, her voice tinged with satisfaction. The crew let out a collective breath, the tension easing for just a moment as the battlefield fell silent. The once chaotic pirate fleet was now a floating graveyard of destroyed ships. The Eclipse had done it. Again. They had won. But Graves wasn't ready to relax. Not yet. "Status report," she called out, her gaze still locked on the remnants of the pirate fleet. "All enemy ships are either destroyed or fleeing," Lieutenant Rhea confirmed. "The Jotheri fleet has regrouped and is securing the area." Graves nodded, but her mind was already moving ahead. "Tell the Jotheri to take care of their own cleanup. We're not here to babysit." "Yes, Captain," Rhea responded with a slight smile. But it didn't last long. The Eclipse's scanner suddenly lit up with a new signal, a transmission from the Jotheri commander. The message was brief, but it was clear. "Human vessel, your assistance was appreciated. However, your participation in this operation is no longer required. We will handle things from here." Graves held her gaze on the incoming transmission. The Jotheri were trying to save face after their defeat, but she knew better. They had been saved by the humans, and deep down, they knew it. Graves stood straight, her voice calm but filled with a quiet authority. "We'll leave when we're ready." The Jotheri might have been quick to dismiss them, but the Eclipse had earned its place in the galaxy, and as long as Captain Lydia Graves was in command, humanity would not be so easily ignored. The Eclipse hovered in the silence of space, the aftermath of battle spreading around them like the remains of a shattered puzzle. Pirate ships drifted in all directions, their broken remains caught in the gravitational pull of nearby asteroids or just floating aimlessly through the vastness of the void. The Jotheri fleet, though battered, remained intact, its ships still forming an awkward, fragmented defense around their station. Captain Lydia Graves stood at the command center, her eyes scanning the tactical displays as the crew worked to stabilize their systems. The Eclipse had taken some damage, but nothing serious. The crew had done their job well, and the ship had lived up to its reputation as a survivor. "Captain," Lieutenant Rhea said, her voice a mix of exhaustion and satisfaction. "The Jotheri are requesting to speak with us again. They're asking for our help with the cleanup." Graves glanced at the screen where the Jotheri commander, Zurath, appeared in a hologram. His expression was no longer condescending, but instead a mixture of respect and reluctance. He looked like a leader who had just been humbled, and one who knew better than to push his luck. "Captain Graves," Zurath's voice came through, still a little cold, but without the usual arrogance. "I must admit, I was wrong about your species. You have proven yourselves capable, perhaps more than I initially anticipated." Graves folded her arms, watching his image carefully. "Glad you've come to that realization, but don't mistake this for an alliance, Commander. We helped today, but that doesn't mean we're going to suddenly become your partners." Zurath looked as though he wanted to argue, but he held himself back. "Understood, Captain. You've earned my respect. The Jotheri can be difficult to work with, but we will honor the terms of our arrangement. You have my word." Graves was silent for a moment. She wasn't fooled by the sudden politeness. This was a tactical move on Zurath's part, nothing more. Still, it wasn't the time to push further. The Eclipse and its crew had done their part, and now it was time to move on. "We'll leave once the station is secured," Graves said, her voice firm. "The Jotheri can handle the rest from here. Humanity's role in this is finished." With that, she severed the connection. Rhea turned her attention back to the tactical display. "We've got some debris to clear, but the station should be safe for now. The Jothari are sending a team to collect any remaining pirate ships and finish any repairs. Graves nodded, but her gaze didn't leave the display. The eclipse had proved itself, and it had earned the respect of the Jothari. But at what cost? They had demonstrated their strength, but Graves knew that the galaxy didn't work on respect alone. There was always another battle, another power play. Humanity had proven they could survive, but survival was only the first step. It didn't guarantee peace. "Prepare the ship for departure," Graves ordered. "I don't want to stick around any longer than necessary." Lieutenant Rhea gave a sharp nod and began to relay the orders. "Understood, Captain. We'll be ready to go shortly." As the crew scrambled to finish their work, Graves took a deep breath and looked out at the vastness of space beyond the eclipse. They had won this battle, but the war, the larger struggle for humanity's place in the galaxy, was far from over. And she could feel it, the weight of everything that still lay ahead. The eclipse drifted through the vast expanse of space, leaving behind the remnants of the pirate fleet and the uneasy truce with the Jothari. The battle was over, but the tension in the air was thick. Graves stood on the bridge, her eyes fixed on the stars outside the viewport. The galaxy was vast, and she knew that this victory, though significant, was only a brief reprieve. The galaxy was a place of endless conflict, and humanity had made its mark, but it had also made enemies. "Captain," Lieutenant Rhea's voice broke through her thoughts. "We've received an encrypted message from the Inner Coalition. It's marked urgent." Graves raised an eyebrow. The Inner Coalition was a group of factions spanning multiple systems, most of which were known for their unpredictable politics and their tendency to demand something in return for their alliances. The message wasn't unexpected, but it certainly wasn't something Graves was eager to deal with. "Patch it through," Graves ordered. A moment later, the screen flickered to life, and an image of a stern-faced man appeared. His uniform was dark and formal, with the insignia of the Inner Coalition clearly visible. His sharp eyes locked onto Graves. "Captain Graves," the man said, his voice low and serious. "I am Commander Alanov of the Inner Coalition. We have a situation that requires your immediate attention." Graves narrowed her eyes. "What kind of situation?" Alanov hesitated for a moment, and when he spoke again, his tone was grim. "There's a new faction, one that we believe could pose a significant threat to both our forces and yours. They've been operating under the radar for months now, and it seems they've recently expanded their reach. We've received reports of unprovoked attacks on several neutral stations in uncharted space. Their technology is unlike anything we've encountered." Graves straightened in her seat. This was serious. A new enemy was the last thing the galaxy needed right now, especially one with technology that could match or surpass that of the established powers. "What kind of technology are we talking about?" Graves asked, her voice sharp. "We don't know yet," Alanov replied, his face tense. "The few survivors of their attacks have mentioned ships that don't match any known designs. We've lost contact with several of our scouts who ventured into their space. All attempts to track them have failed, but we believe their fleet is growing, and fast." Graves leaned forward. The unknown always posed the greatest danger. If this new faction had technology that could disrupt the balance of power, it could throw the entire galaxy into chaos. "I'm listening," she said, her voice steady. "We need you to investigate," Alanov continued. "Your ship, the Eclipse, has already proven it can handle itself in dangerous situations. We're willing to provide some resources and intel, but this will need to be a joint effort. We'll need a coalition of forces to deal with this threat before it spreads." Graves was silent for a moment, considering the situation. The Eclipse had proven its worth, but this wasn't just about pirates anymore. A new power, hidden in the shadows, could be something far worse than anything they had faced so far. "And if we don't find anything?" Graves asked. "What happens then?" Alanov's expression didn't soften. "If we don't find anything, then you'll be cleared of any involvement. But if these reports are accurate, and we have reason to believe they are. This threat needs to be neutralized. Fast. Graves exhaled slowly. The eclipse had already proven itself, but this would be different. This wouldn't be a simple battle or skirmish. It was a hunt, one that would take them deep into unknown space. And if this new faction had the technology they were rumored to have, it could mean a fight on a scale they had never imagined. "Fine," she said, her tone firm. "We'll investigate, but don't expect us to be your pawns in this. If we find something, we'll handle it on our terms." Alanov's face tightened, but he nodded. "Understood. We'll provide you with the coordinates for the last known location of one of our scouts. We'll also send you the intel we have." "Good," Graves said. "We'll leave as soon as we're ready." The transmission ended, and Graves was left staring at the empty screen. A new threat. Unknown. Dangerous. And possibly worse than the pirates. The weight of the decision settled over her. The Eclipse was not a warship. It was a ship of survivors. But this wasn't just about surviving anymore. This was about protecting humanity, no matter the cost. "Lieutenant Rhea," Graves said, her voice cold and decisive. "Get the crew ready. We have a new mission." "Aye, Captain," Rhea replied. Graves turned back to the stars. The galaxy had been warned, but it was clear that this new enemy was going to test them in ways they hadn't expected. And for the first time, she felt a true sense of the unknown. The Eclipse had faced many challenges, but this was different. They were about to face something the galaxy had never seen before. "Captain," Rhea spoke again, her voice tentative. "Are we really just going to walk away after this? The Jotheri, they'll expect more from us eventually." Graves turned toward her, her expression unyielding. "Let them expect. We've shown them what we can do, but humanity doesn't bend to anyone's will. We stand on our own, no matter who's watching." Rhea nodded, though there was a flicker of doubt in her eyes. Graves could see it, could feel it. The crew had fought hard, and their victories had come at a price. But the captain couldn't afford to let them become complacent. Not yet. Not until humanity had firmly established its place in the galaxy. "We leave now," Graves continued. "The Eclipse may be old, but it's still a symbol of humanity's resolve. We don't need anyone's approval to do what we must, and we'll make sure no one forgets that." With that, she turned and walked to the bridge, her mind already focusing on the next steps. The Eclipse was ready to leave, but there were still other challenges to face, other powers to confront. And Graves wouldn't rest until humanity was no longer underestimated, no longer dismissed. Humanity had shown its strength today. Now, it was time for the galaxy to take notice. The Eclipse surged forward, its engines roaring as it cut through the stars. The crew was on edge, the tension palpable after the unexpected transmission from the inner coalition. This wasn't just another battle. It was a hunt into uncharted space, a pursuit of a shadowy force that could reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. Captain Lydia Graves stood on the bridge, her eyes scanning the vastness beyond the ship. The unknown was always a dangerous place, but now it was something far more personal. They were chasing a threat that could destroy everything humanity had fought for. The Eclipse had shown its worth, but this mission would test them all in ways they hadn't anticipated. "Captain, we've received the coordinates," Lieutenant Rhea called out, her voice tight with focus. "We're closing in on the last known position of the scout ship. ETA to target. 30 minutes. Graves didn't respond immediately, her gaze still fixed on the view ahead. The stars seemed to swirl around them, an endless ocean of darkness. Every ship, every faction, every force out there had its own agenda. The Eclipse was small, but it had proven to be a resilient ship, capable of handling whatever came its way. But this was different. They were heading into a sector no one had dared venture into for years, and if what Alanov had said was true, this unknown enemy would be unlike anything they had faced before. "Any new intel?" Graves asked, her voice calm, yet carrying the weight of their mission. Nothing new, Captain, Rhea replied. The last report from the scout came in just before they lost contact. They mentioned encountering ships that didn't match any known designs. The enemy's technology is, well, we don't have any details, but it's advanced. Too advanced for most of the factions around here. Wonderful, Graves muttered under her breath. They didn't need to be dealing with something like this, especially not with their own forces still recovering from the battle with the pirates. But there was no turning back now. Captain, we're approaching the sector, Rhea said, glancing up. All readings are clear, no signs of activity. Graves nodded. Keep scanning. We don't know what we're walking into. The ship slowed as they entered the empty sector. The blackness of space stretched out in every direction. There was no sign of the scout ship. No signs of life at all. Just an eerie silence that seemed to press in on them from all sides. I'm not liking this, Rhea said, her voice tense. This is too quiet. Graves could feel the same unease creeping into her own thoughts. This wasn't just a quiet space. It was a void. The kind of place where you were alone with your thoughts, where you could almost believe that the galaxy had forgotten about you. But before she could respond, the ship's sensors lit up. Captain, Rhea exclaimed, her voice sharp with urgency. I'm detecting something. Large objects, closing in fast. Graves' heart skipped a beat. What kind of objects? Rhea's fingers flew across the controls. They don't match any known configurations. Wait, they're changing course. They're coming straight at us. The Eclipse's alarms blared, warning lights flashing across the bridge as Rhea adjusted the ship's course. Graves felt the weight of the moment settle on her shoulders. Shields up, Graves barked. Brace for impact. The ship jolted as the first blast came from the approaching ships. The Eclipse shook violently, sending the crew lurching forward. The hull groaned under the strain, but the ship held steady. This was no pirate assault. The weapons that hit them felt different. More powerful, more precise. Damage report, Graves demanded, her voice unwavering. We've got multiple systems failing, Rhea replied quickly. Shields are holding, but we've taken hits to the engines and weapons array. We need to get out of here, Captain. Graves didn't hesitate. No, we stand and fight. Open a channel to the enemy ships. Let's see who's out there. The comms crackled to life, and a voice came through, cold and metallic. Human vessel. You have entered restricted space. Surrender now, and your lives will be spared. Graves felt a chill run through her. The voice wasn't one she recognized. This was the new faction, and they had already made their intentions clear. They weren't here to negotiate. I don't think you understand, Graves said, her tone steady despite the tension in the air. We're not here to surrender. We're here to find out who you are and why you think you can threaten us. For a moment, there was silence. Then the voice spoke again, this time with a hint of disdain. You are far too small to stand against us. Your fleet will fall, and your species will be forgotten. Graves clenched her fists, her determination solidifying. We'll see about that. Fire, she commanded, her voice cutting through the tension on the bridge. The Eclipse's remaining weapon systems flared to life, sending a barrage of fire at the advancing enemy ships. They were outnumbered, but Graves wasn't going to back down. This new faction had underestimated humanity once. She wasn't going to let it happen again. The Eclipse rocked with another hit, but Graves stood tall. All hands, prepare for a full engagement. This is just the beginning. The fight for humanity's survival had begun, and Captain Lydia Graves wasn't about to let it end here.